who will be president in 2025?
I host a daily political show on YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, on all the different platforms. I think I've about 2 million followers and subscribers across the platforms, and I focus on progressive news, which I think is important today because we see so much of the right-wing media ecosystem focus on pushing an agenda for that party, and the antidote to that, or the antidote, is a mainstream media that really isn't out there pushing for progressive policies and progressive legislation. So that's what I do.
So we're going to chat a little bit about US politics. We're sitting here at Web Summit, and last night the US had an election in Virginia for the gubernatorial election, and Glenn Youngkin beat Terry McAuliffe. This is in a state that Joe Biden carried by, I think, 10 points a year ago, and a Republican has now won for the first time in over 10 years. So where does that leave progressive politics for the next 12 months coming into the midterms, with Congress obviously in the balance? And where does that leave Joe Biden and his agenda?
I think if nothing else, this should actually be all of the pressure that we need to continue pushing the agenda forward. I think something that you'll hear from centrists or corporate Democrats is that we should just take a step back because people might not want to see big government spending, using the line that they get from the right. But if anything, the mandate that Biden was elected to office with, and the mandate that Democrats took the majority in the House with and the majority in the Senate with, is to pass the agenda that they ran on. And that includes universal pre-K, allowing the government to negotiate lower drug prices, paid family leave, in addition to the infrastructure package that's still pending in Congress right now. So to look at this and think that we have to take a step back would be the wrong approach. It is every indication that we need to actually aggressively push our agenda forward so that people can recognize the importance of actually electing Democrats.
So you're mentioning Joe Biden's agenda a lot there. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would focus first on the fact that we have $550 billion in that package, mostly as carrots and not sticks, to encourage corporations to lower their carbon emissions. But beyond that, I mean, this should be a 5-alarm fire for voters out there to continue electing Democrats, because we have 1 or 2 senators in the Senate on the Democratic side who are still blocking any of this good progressive climate legislation from moving forward. And so if you see that and you say, okay, well, we have a caucus, a big tent caucus that spans everyone from Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin, and yet we only have 2 people, so 96% of Democrats are in support of this climate legislation. Well, we only need a couple of senators to render their voices moot. So we have elections coming up in 2022 in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, Florida, as well as keeping Democrats in the Senate in Georgia and Arizona. We need to win some of those races so that we can eliminate the filibuster and start passing legislation that actually has some teeth, some legislation that will actually make some of an impact and confront the challenges that we're facing today.
So you mentioned there, and I think this is key, eliminating the filibuster. So US politics, Congress is a logjam. Nothing can get through because you need 60 senators. You can't get past this filibuster. How do they get rid of it? Why should they get rid of it? And what will they then be able to do if they get rid of it? And if they do get rid of it, do they risk losing the majority and having Republicans push through what would probably be a fairly unpopular right-wing agenda?
Well, I'll answer your questions in reverse. With regard to not eliminating the filibuster out of fear of something happening in the future, the real issue, the real fear should come from what's happening right now, because a lot of our democracy is hanging in the balance. Climate change and the future of this planet is hanging in the balance. What is worse than doing nothing right now or allowing these problems to continue exacerbating? That's the biggest fear. We can't just be afraid of something that might happen at some untold point in the future, and so that's going to stop us from doing anything moving forward. With regard to actually eliminating the filibuster, how do we do it? Same answer as I just gave before. We have to elect more senators just to overcome the voices of people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who think that their raison d'etre in the Senate is just to basically entrench a procedural tool as opposed to passing the legislation that their voters put them in that office to pass.
Is the power of money in US politics too much?
Yes. Yeah, to answer your question, yes. And to answer your previous question, yes, there is too much money in American politics. But to answer the subtext of that, I don't think that Kyrsten Sinema is going to be able to hide behind that money because like I said before, so many people are paying attention. They're well aware of the challenges that she poses to the agenda more broadly. And I think that she's going to learn really quickly at the next election that she has in 2024 that, ultimately it's not a pharmaceutical executive who's going to be able to vote enough times to compensate for the fact that there's a lot of Arizonans who are unhappy with what she's doing and recognize that she's not only not meeting the moment, but really squandering a rare moment in American politics where we're able to fix a lot of what's broken. And this doesn't come along often, but we have some major, major challenges that we're facing right now. Like I said, with regard to climate change, I mean, California's on fire. Iowa and the Midwest have droughts. We're seeing hurricanes in New Jersey destroying the infrastructure in New York, the subways. The danger of climate change right now is unmistakable. I mean, COP26 is happening as we speak. And yet the fact that this senator can be more focused on protecting the filibuster than protecting the planet really does show that she is squandering this moment to build what would be a really great legacy, and instead just protecting herself to the benefit of no one for a constituency of God knows who.
So imagine we're probably coming close to the end of our time, but we're at a tech conference. It'd be remiss of me not to talk a bit about tech and politics, particularly, I think, social media. We're here at Web Summit again in 2021. Frances Haugen spoke at opening night. We now know that Facebook knew about the damage it's been doing to society. We know that they knew about the damage they were doing to democracy. You are very popular on social media, in some ways, as was the former president of the United States. How much damage has social media done to US politics, and how does it come back from that?
I fear that it's done irreparable harm. Just this past week, we've seen a number of QAnon supporters congregate in Dallas because they believed that JFK Jr., who died in 1999, was going to come back and then be anointed the vice president of a president who lost the last election. I mean, it is just lunacy, really. And yet, the fact that they believed it, something so ridiculous, kind of explains why they would believe more insidious pieces of disinformation, like the big lie that the election was stolen, like vaccine disinformation. It's done irreparable harm, both in terms of lives lost, in terms of families torn apart, in terms of stopping an agenda that would otherwise lend itself to protecting this planet. How we get back from that is for people to have better literacy online, for federal legislators to push back against disinformation and actually be able to enforce some of the laws that govern traditional media in terms of libel and slander and whatever they can do, and to really meet this moment right now that we're contending with, because it seems to only be getting worse right now.
Last thing, when they ask, I'm going to put you on the spot for 2 predictions. Are the Democrats going to hold on to Congress next year? And who will be president in 2025?
Oh. Are the Democrats going to hold on to Congress? What I'm hoping is that they'll see what happened in Virginia, and that'll be the kick in the ass that they need to wake up and elect Democrats throughout the country in midterms, because what historically happens, as I'm sure you know, is that the party in power, either through complacency or just higher rates of being energized on the other side, they'll lose their majorities. What I'm hoping is that because Donald Trump lost the last election and yet Republicans gained in the House and failed to lose a bunch of the Senate seats that they were supposed to lose, and we saw that big correction on against Democrats, because normally we would, when we win a presidential election, we would also gain in the House and Senate. Well, that didn't happen. Republicans actually gained, and so hopefully we've already seen that correction, and Democrats can benefit from what is an advantageous Senate map. Again, we have seats coming up in Pennsylvania, which has been trending blue, Wisconsin, which has been trending blue, North Carolina, which is a true toss-up state. And then, of course, states like Ohio, where we have a great candidate, and Tim Ryan running, who's a candidate who's shown that he can win in that state. Other states like Iowa and Florida. So hopefully this advantageous map will help Democrats, and I do think that we'll be able to eke out a win there. In terms of who will be the president in 2025, Gavin, I'm sorry, I can't even venture to guess. I am not in the prediction business for a reason. I think it would just be there is no way to tell what's going to happen. But at least speaking from the work that I'm trying to do to raise money for voter registration groups in 9 different states, from Texas to Florida, Arizona, Georgia, Iowa, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and North Carolina, to get people energized and engaged and focused on what's happening. Hopefully they'll look at Virginia last night and recognize that we can't be complacent. The challenges in front of us right now are greater than they've ever been. Democracy's on the line, the planet is on the line, and it sucks that we have to continuously pay attention, and that it's always the most important election of our lifetimes, every election after every single election. But we have to be ready for this perpetual fight, and hopefully deliver a repudiation big enough so that Republicans will stop focusing on dismantling the core foundations of our democracy and start to focus on important things like combating climate change, so that we have a habitable planet that we all can live on.
Well, I think hoping that we have a planet we can all live on is probably a good place to finish.
Yeah.
So, Brian, thanks for sitting down and chatting with me today, and thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.